We believe in a full-bodied gospel. We believe that when Jesus came into the world through his death and his resurrection, it wasn't just about life insurance for the next life. We believe that the kingdom of God, that we are to bring the kingdom of God into the here and now. Now, it's going to be imperfect. It won't be what it will be one day, but in some way that we are working for God's kingdom, for his presence to come into the world, into our city. And so this morning I have asked Becca Robbins to come and to give us an update on immigration in our city. Becca recently stepped into a leadership role here at the Hills Church for our biblical justice and outreach. And she and Ryan have a tremendous heart to see the image of God restored in people who have been oppressed, like life has been hard. And so I've asked you just to share a little bit about immigration in our city and ways that we can get involved in it.
Hi. I didn't bring my slides, so hopefully they're up there. Okay. So first, Matthew just asked me to kind of share about what is happening with immigration in Denver. If you are paying attention much, you might know. But in December, there were about 10,000 migrants a day crossing our border from Mexico. These are folks from all over South and Central America. We hear a lot about the Venezuelans that are coming. That's true, there are a lot. But people from other countries too. And Denver, Colorado has been a refuge city for folks for a while, and so a lot of people come on buses into Denver. So just in the last year, a little over a year, 38,000 migrants have showed up in our city, which we're honestly not prepared for. So the next slide will show, this is the way my brain works. I'm like, okay, we have all those folks, and who can help them? Because our government is not set up to help them. So can faith-based organizations help them? There are only, I would say only, a little over 2,500 faith-based organizations. That's churches, mosques, synagogues, also just nonprofits that are faith-based in the Denver metro area. So if you do the math, if each of those nonprofits helped maybe 3 to 5 folks, then all of those newcomers would have some connections, which is huge. So as a Hills, how can we step into the gap and show up for these people, learn alongside of them? I think that's a huge part of what we have learned as a family is this isn't us really solving any problems, but this is us journeying with people to learn alongside them. So what can we do as a church? First of all, who here has heard of Project Worthmore? Only a few of us. Okay, so Project Worthmore is a 10-minute drive from here. As a nonprofit started about 10 years ago by a family who stepped in to walk alongside some immigrants and just realized that there were some huge gaps, and so they wanted to fill those. So we would love, as the Hills, to start partnering with Project Worthmore a bit because they've been doing it for a long time. They have a lot of great programs already happening. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So their mission and vision is up there. You guys can visit their website. They do have a volunteer orientation once a month. And so the next one, these are the things they do. So English classes, they've partnered with the Emily Griffith School for Languages, and they have language classes. Again, it's just 10 minutes from here. It's like east of here. And so they need folks to come. They have teachers for those classes, but they need volunteers to come kind of be classroom helpers in those classes. They also do food packaging and delivery. The couple that started this nonprofit, the husband was a chef, so fresh food, good produce is like really huge on his list to provide our friends. So they package food, sometimes they deliver food to certain people. They also create care packages, so any families that come into their community, get a care package to just kind of say welcome. And we're actually next week we're going to put together care packages with youth that come hang out at Ryan and I's house during micro church. So we'll be doing that. And then financial support opportunities always. But that's Project Worthmore. I will say, unfortunately, most of their volunteer opportunities are during work hours, just because that's the need. Also, most of the people come there and walk, and so just for safety reasons, they don't want to have things in the evenings. But they have other opportunities, so don't let that deter you if you don't have hours during the week to give. It's such a great, you can just go on their website and learn, watch some of their videos. It's pretty awesome. They have like 25 languages represented with the people that they serve there. It's very beautiful to see. So their next volunteer orientation is Wednesday, February 28th. I went last month. It's a really great couple hours to just learn about what they're doing and dig in a bit on the issues. So that's one opportunity. A second opportunity would be maybe a little bit edgier, but to just, if the idea of helping a family or newcomers tugs on your heart, we could create a team to support one or two families as a church. Ryan and I have done this with some neighbors who are here today. We've supported, kind of come alongside 2 or 3 family units, and that looks like sometimes helping them find work, sometimes helping them find housing. A lot of times just friendship is the best thing that we can offer, being a safe door to knock on, a safe person to ask questions to. Community navigation, like where is the nearest health clinic, where's the nearest food bank, just where, how can I find cheaper food than Target or King Soopers, things like that. But I know this is kind of a scary thing, like if you're sitting there going, well, I'm definitely not qualified for that, I don't speak Spanish, I don't have answers to the questions. There's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't do this. And I've asked myself those questions many times. But what I've learned is, again, it's not about having all the right answers or being the solution to problems. It's about being willing to share the journey with someone. It's about being willing to be a safe place for people, a safe person. I mean, I don't know if you've ever traveled or lived in a foreign country, but it's scary to not know anybody and not speak the language. And so to have become a safe door to knock on for some folks, they can come and ask us questions and we say, yeah, we don't know. And also, we don't speak Spanish, so don't let that deter you either. There's great ways, and it's just navigating it. So it's been delightful and crazy and a learning experience. So I would say I would be willing if you maybe as a micro church or some neighbors or, I don't know, maybe you have an uncle that has a construction company that would be willing to hire folks. Just whatever it is, if you think, gosh, maybe I could help, but I just have one piece of the puzzle, email me. We can talk about how to create a team of people that could engage and come alongside a family or two as a church. You would love it. And I don't think there's anything else.
Well, let me ask you a question. So the way that, if I understand correctly, you kind of got started in this journey a little bit, and is some folks showed up at your door.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, well, if you remember last December, a bunch of folks came on buses. This was kind of the first wave. And they closed down some city rec centers to house them. For the city will house people depending on if it's an adult by themselves or with kids for a few weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And so they were shutting down rec centers. Well, we happen to live down the street from a rec center. So, and then there was a bunch of snow. So these guys just knocked on our door one day to shovel our walks.
And so that was a year ago.
Yeah.
And you're still in contact with some of those.
Yeah, it was kind of, these guys just all met together at that rec center because they were sleeping there, and so they came in, we talked. Yeah, we still have contact with, they're basically like 3 family groups that we are hanging out with.
And did one of them end up found housing with another neighbor?
Yep, so
I'm asking questions.
So here's the thing, like, one thing that you don't realize, a huge part of what we have, you have and I have, is relationships. And if you're new to a country, you don't have those relationships. But we have neighbors we can call. We have family members in town. So, yep, some of our neighbors were looking, they have a basement apartment, or they really wanted to house some refugees. So after a few weeks of back and forth, we figured out how to get them connected. Those neighbors housed a husband and wife for like 7-8 months, I think. And, you know, they were strangers and now they're family. They love each other and it's really beautiful. We have a family connection with an apartment, and so these guys don't have ways to go through credit checks and deposit and all that stuff. So because our family is on the board of a nonprofit that had an apartment, they were able to move into that 2-bedroom apartment. They still pay rent. They work hard for that money, but they didn't have to go through the security deposit and all that process.
Right. And so this is not like there's no training necessarily for this besides just hospitality, like true hospitality, opening up your life for people. And so I think that's like the one challenge or the takeaway for all of us is like, what does hospitality look like for these thousands of people who have migrated here, who have, for whatever the reason may be, looking for a better life, and they get here in a system, like you said, that government is not set up to help them thrive. And so how can we come alongside? It's going to look different for everybody, but I think the other thing I'm hearing is that it's not like your one family is providing for one single family. It's people coming together. It might look like a micro-church coming together, providing support.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend that. I think it's a lot of pressure for one family unit to feel like they are responsible for these folks. It's just so great to be able to share that responsibility. And there is no training, but I won't leave anybody hanging. If they feel tugged to do something, I'm right there to help and encourage and learn with you too.
And even serve as like, if there's a few people in the church, they're like, I want to do something more, Becca can serve as the focal point to connect us to one another.
So really, I'd love to.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Becca. This morning we are continuing in our current sermon series on how to be unsuccessful in 2024. And Gigi is going to come and preach this morning. Welcome. Careful.
I got some props this morning. Not just thirsty. All right, so good morning. All right, thank you so much, Becca. That was really encouraging. But as Matthew stated, we are in a series on how to be unsuccessful, where we're kind of redefining what success looks like for the Christ follower. I love Google and I love definitions, so I'm just going to throw out the Google definition of success. And Google defines success as the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. That's it. You're just accomplishing some sort of aim or purpose. And when I ask you individually, well, what does success look like? I'm sure we would all have different answers. And if we look to society, often success is gauged by these personal accomplishments, fame, and material wealth and possession. And if our personal achievements and our relevance define our success, well then what does it look like for us to be unsuccessful? Because that can't be it. And so today I'm going to be talking through how to be unsuccessful, pursuing relationships over relevance. So oftentimes when we view success, it encapsulates this idea of relevance. And relevance, again, another definition for you. I like this simple one. It's connected with what is happening or being discussed. That's what it is to be relevant or relevance. And this pursuit of relevance and trying to stay connected to what is current often overshadows so many of the things that we say we value. And relevance, if you look out to our culture, it has emerged as this pervasive cultural value. And the constant societal emphasis on being noticed, and we all want to be deemed as important, that has become an obsession. And we want to feel connected to what's happening. And we want to feel connected to what's really being discussed. And who doesn't crave relevance? And this is where you start to examine your own life and look at your own cravings. Because if handed the choice between being relevant or irrelevant, I mean, so many of us would choose the former. And if you don't know what's relevant or not, just go to the younger generation and they will tell you. I mean, within minutes, they'll tell you. And so I'm just going to tell you what's relevant and what's irrelevant. So hoodies are relevant. And coats and jackets, no. Young kids, they're not wearing coats that's like 30 degrees and below freezing, and they're still not wearing coats. But hoodies, yes. For all of you who know this, what do we stand on?
Business.
That's right, you stand on business, SOB. Now, growing up, SOB was something very bad. But to this younger generation, it means stand on business. Okay, so that's relevant. Also, Riz, that's it. That's relevant. Slay is out. Okay? Got is in. Although my 13-year-old says I put too much emphasis on the got. I do. Just casual. Also, I can't even do the gang sign hearts that they do. It's like, this thing, there it is! I cannot do it. They know. They know. I can't. My fingers are all messed up. So, just sit down with the younger generation and they will school you on what is in and what is out. But really, trying to stay relevant is a full-time job. I mean, I had to take notes from my kids. And there's a composer, his name is Christopher Tin, and he composes art music for video games and movies and films. And this is what he has to say about relevance. He says, I'm just trying to survive and stay relevant. That's all anyone in the music business can ask for. So depending on what industry you fall into, relevance is tied to your survival. It's also kind of tied to ours. Another woman who's in the fashion industry, her name is Natalie Massenet, she says this, she says, in order to stay relevant, you have to stay open to new trends and keep educating yourself. You have to keep evolving. Well, what's wrong with evolving? That's something good, right? And educating ourselves, that's something that we should all pursue. And we all need to kind of stay connected to what's happening. And so what we do culturally and as a society is we carefully consider our decisions. And maybe some of you will fall guilty to this, because I know I did. So we carefully consider what cities we live in. We carefully consider the towns that we preside in. We carefully calculate the type of car that we drive. Have you heard that Denver is the place for what type of car? Subaru. Tesla. Subaru. The parenting style that some people really love her. The shows that we watch, the date night restaurants that we frequent. Who here looks on Yelp? Greg, you better raise your hand because I know you do. He won't even make a decision to go to a restaurant without Yelp, or he won't watch a show without looking at IMDb. Do you know why? Because we want to know what is relevant and what is not. What's going to waste my time and what is not. And then there was something new that was really, really crazy and bizarre. The Stanley Cup phenomenon. Now, I don't have a Stanley Cup because I am not that relevant, but this is pretty basically what a Stanley Cup is. It's a pretty basic water bottle. I've even heard that it leaks a little when you tip it over. But people were lining up outside of Target to get their Stanley Cup. You guys, people are reselling these pink and red cups for like $100. Just go to Facebook Marketplace. I just saw them. Why? Do you know why? I actually do know why. According to TikTok, which is a relevant app, it's because there was a video of a girl whose car burned, and the only thing that didn't burn was her Stanley Cup. So everyone was like, oh my gosh, it must be worth it. Even though it leaks, I'm gonna get it. I want it. So it's this quest, it's this craving for relevance, and we love it. And churches aren't exempt either, unfortunately. Churches like to launch big campaigns offering the best small groups and the best youth programs and the best children's services. This is all aimed at like kind of growing in popularity. They even have light shows. I mean, some of these churches have a really cool, entertaining Sunday. I mean, you go, you have a light show, you have this big performance, and you are fully entertained. Author and theologian Os Guinness says, never have Christians pursued relevance more strenuously, and never have Christians been more irrelevant. It isn't that relevance is inherently bad. It's not bad. Like, I'm not going to say, yeah, it's bad, because I fall guilty, I fall prey to the trends. But it becomes a disservice to our lives when we prioritize relevance over all other things. And the problem is when it becomes like this unsatisfied craving, that's what we just constantly obsess over. Because really, relevance is a delectable treat, like chocolate. In my life, it's chocolate. It's so tempting and alluring. And it promises us this like fulfillment and satiation, but oftentimes it leaves us with these empty carbs, like chocolate, with a high calorie count, if you are counting. And it leaves us unsatisfied, but really craving more. And we don't get full off of relevance. Because, as they say, too much of anything is bad. So the problem that I've noticed culturally with this craving for relevance is the chase. And there's 4 reasons that I've outlined that I see that relevance leads to. One is it's a short-term focus. Relevance is very fickle, just like the trends. And maintaining this sense of relevance implies that you have to stay up with the trends. And what's in today is not going to be in tomorrow. And this short-term focus can hinder you from meaningful long-term goals and long-term pursuits. The second thing is relevance is pretty superficial. I mean, just look out on any of these apps, and I know I'm not alone, okay, because I do enjoy TikTok, but I know that you guys like social media too. If you look out on these apps and you're scrolling through who's actually relevant and part of the discussion, so oftentimes it's very superficial. Look at the Kardashians. What are they saying? But they have the highest platforms. And all they're trying to do is make you look skinny and get got. relationships where we find ourselves only having superficial conversations and talking about superficial things. The third problem I found with relevance is that it's very self-centered. It is about me and what I want. And I want my house to be painted white with a black trim. I don't care what it looks like with all the other houses, if it matches or clashes. I want it because that's what's in and it's relevant. I want to be seen. I want my photos blasted. I want to be in there. And it's this recognition and this popularity that we like because it feels good. But it's also at the expense of something genuine. It's at the expense of depth. And then the fourth thing that I've noticed that there's a problem with relevance is it strips individuality. Everyone is listening to the same stuff, wearing the same stuff. I mean, when I was younger, like to hear the cool hip hop, we had to travel all the way to Illinois, on our yearly trip to Chicago, and then that's when we'd really be exposed to like the cool stuff. Like this is what's really cool, because Denver, it took like 2 years, and then we finally get it. But now everything is so instant, which is sometimes nice, but now everyone's talking the same, wearing the same stuff, painting their homes the same, buying the same water bottles, watching the same shows, listening to the same music and to the same people. The pursuit of relevance asks for a steep cost. It demands our time, our attention, and our authenticity. And as we consider what's at stake, this is when you have to start getting introspective. And you have to pause. And you have to reflect on the value of relevance. And you have to ask yourself, well, is it worth it? Is it worth it for my life, in my life? And so especially if we're looking at redefining what success looks like and challenging what even relevance is, then why not come up with something that we can lean into that at least has some Christ-centered values? Because I think it's time to place a greater emphasis on pursuing meaningful relationships and genuine connections and authenticity. Because if you think about what, at the end of the life, when you really say, I had a fulfilled life, it's not going to be the relevance. It's going to be those meaningful connections that you've made along the way. And when we consider what leads to fulfillment, relevance falls short. And there is something attainable and something so sweet and something that is actually meaty that we can have if we pursue meaningful connections and relationships. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 paints us this beautiful picture of what healthy and strong relationships provide us. It says, and this is taken from the Message, because sometimes I love reading the Message. It says, it's better to have a partner than go it alone. Share the work, share the wealth. Oh boy, talking about share my pockets? Share the work, share the wealth. And if one falls down, the other helps. If you're struggling in life, there's someone alongside of you that's going to help. You don't have to do it alone. Two in a bed warm each other. Alone, you shiver all night. Now, I'm not saying you should share your bed with anybody, but you get the point. By yourself, you're unprotected. You're unprotected, but with a friend, you can face the worst, because life is going to throw you the worst. Can you round up a third? A 3-stranded rope isn't easily snapped. Our success, and what we define as success as Christ followers, should look different. And this type of success, when pursuing meaningful relationships, this type of success involves a very delicate balance Because I don't want you to walk away from our time together thinking that all relevance is bad. And to be relevant is just a naughty thing and smack yourself on the wrist. That's not what I'm trying to get you to understand. It's the craving. It's that constant turning. That's like, oh, but I need to, like, I'm so reliant on this relevant thing. So reliant on being relevant. The issue is to address that craving. Because really, it's the craving that's going to drive us mad. It's the craving that's going to drive a wedge in between our relationships. So our job then as Christians is really to create these checks and balances. Because again, relevance alone is not going to provide fulfillment. And we all of us, all humans desire in some way or another to feel fulfilled in life. But through this balance, relevance is not the priority, relationships are. And there are actually two examples within Scripture that I want to highlight. There's more than two, but I only have time to highlight two relationships. The first relationship I want to highlight is Jonathan and David, and the second I want to highlight is Ruth and Naomi. So the first one being Jonathan and David. Most of us know about King David, but where this passage was taken from, he was not the king yet. Okay? So he was just little old David, but what he just did was he killed Goliath. So he just killed Goliath, and now he's going before King Saul. And Jonathan is the son of King Saul. So it's important to have this little bit of background. And this is what it says in 1 Samuel 18, 1 through 4. It says, by the time David had finished reporting to Saul, reporting about Goliath, Jonathan was deeply impressed with David. An immediate bond was forged between them. He became totally committed to David. From that point on, he would be David's number one advocate and friend. Saul received David into his own household that day, no more to return to the home of his father. And Jonathan, out of his deep love for David, made a covenant with him. He formalized it with solemn gifts. He had his own royal robe and weapons, armor, sword, bow, and belt. That's a friend. You're telling me as soon as you saw this guy, you were like, dang. I mean, can we say the same? I mean, we'd be lucky to have a friend like that. Sometimes we can't even get a friend to show up to an event we're having. And then soon, this is where it really hits home. Because soon after this passage, well, King Saul starts getting jealous of David. And he starts like, I want to kill him. Like, I'm so jealous of him, I actually want to kill him. And guess what? Jonathan, the homeboy, was like, what? Not my friend. And he let David know. Jonathan, the son of a king, let his friend know, hey, my dad is trying to kill you. If that is not an example of him sacrificing his own relevance for a friend, then I don't know what is. He said, look, this relationship means more than my robe, than all kinds of other stuff. I'm going to let you know that my dad is actually out to get you. He sacrificed his own personal relevance for a dear friend, and this forged a deep, supportive friendship showcasing loyalty, sacrifice, and a shared commitment to God's purpose. And it says later on in Scripture that when David found out about Saul and Jonathan, he tore his clothes from his body because of the grief. That's the type of friendship. And what's highlighted here is his commitment to his friend, not his personal gain. Because if it would have just been the Jonathan party, it would have been very different. And then the second of the Bible. I love Ruth. And just a little bit of context for you. So Ruth is Naomi's daughter-in-law. And right before this passage that we're about to read was taken, what happened is Ruth's husband, Naomi's son, died. And Naomi, actually all the men in her life had died. And so Naomi is like, well, I got to go back home. Now Ruth was already at home. She's in Moab. So Ruth is like, okay. But Naomi's like, I got to go back home. And so they're walking. And this is what happens between them. This is taken from Ruth 1:15 through 18. Naomi said, look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her own people and her own gods. You should do the same. Like, go back. I'm letting you go. But Ruth said, don't force me to leave you. Don't force me to go back to my own people. Let me go with you. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you sleep, I will sleep. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And where you die, I will die. And that is where I will be buried. And I ask the Lord to punish me if I don't keep this promise. Only death will separate us. Naomi's response is kind of funny because it says Naomi saw that Ruth wanted very much to go with her. So Naomi stopped arguing with her. But here we see this desperation almost. Like, I will sacrifice anything to be with you because this relationship means so much. I will even turn away from those other gods and I will serve your God. Because really, this is Naomi bringing her to God. Otherwise, how would Ruth have even known about this God? The God that we all serve. It's through these relationships, these strong bonds. And those, I think, are some of the most powerful words to be able to express to someone. Have I ever said those words to any of my friends? No. I haven't. But how meaningful it would be to hear that. That you love me so much. That we face so much adversity. That we face so much death. And you're going to stick by me through the end. Your relevance wasn't important. This relationship was. And see, this is where we have to challenge ourselves because culturally it is different. Culturally it says pursue your life. Pursue your career. Move to the other side of the world if that's what it means. And we will forsake any sort of relationship. And I'm not saying that you need to just, beat yourself down over this. But I'm just saying culturally we do not value relationships as much as we do relevance. It is closely tied to our decisions. Or sometimes it doesn't. It means nothing. And I know that now we live in this modern time, in this modern age, where we can still stay semi-connected to the ones that we love. But we really have to consider the sacrifice. Because relevance is fleeting. And these stories of Jonathan and David and Ruth and Naomi, they stand as this timeless reminder of the impact that genuine relationships can have on our own journeys. That when we are touched by someone, a really good relationship, a meaningful relationship, it can change the trajectory of our lives. And even as those examples, if we look at Jonathan, I told you already that he passed away. But Ruth, because of that decision, was what, the great-great-great-great-grandmother of Jesus. So, as we kind of sit with this and wrestle with this, here are just some ways that we can start to shift our focus from the allure of personal relevance to more of the enduring relationship. So I've come up with 4 things. Some of them you're probably going to say, ugh, that can be whatever. The first one is take a friend on a walk. Okay? Take a friend on a walk. It doesn't even have to be a walk. It's cold. If you don't like going outside in the cold, go to coffee. Go to tea. Sometimes our lives get so busy, and I am guilty of this. I have 5 kids, and sometimes I'm consumed by their lives. Do you know why I'm consumed by their lives? Because they have to be in everything. Because that's what everyone's doing. That's, the good parenting thing, trying to stay relevant. So here they are busy, and here I am busy. But really, make it a priority. Reach out to someone. Take them on a walk. Take them to coffee. Say that your relationship means something to me. The second thing that we can do is actively support others. Actively support others. Let them know, let the people that you're in relationships with know that you're praying for them. Encourage them. Show up for them. Just show up. And what this means is time. The first one was your time. The second one also involves time. So there are things that we have to sacrifice in order to have deep, meaningful relationships. The third thing is join a community or participate in a community. And honestly, the Hills, I really want to shout y'all out because we are doing a really good job. Even with micro churches, we're showing up, we're having a good time. We're going deeper than what we can actually go on a Sunday. And even outside of the micro churches, we can still get involved in the communities in which we live. Get to know your neighbors. You're living by them. Get to know their stories. Now this is the hardest one, maybe. Get off your phone. Okay? Relevance is constantly bidding for our attention. Here it is. And oftentimes it comes through that device right there. I was listening to the radio. I know that some people think that no one listens to the radio, but I do. I was listening to the radio this week, and the host was talking about her teenage son. And she said, oh yeah, my son just decided to get off of TikTok. And she was like, well, why? Why did you decide to get off of TikTok? Now, obviously, no surprise, I love TikTok, so I like to turn it up. I'm like, well, why did he get off of TikTok? And he told his mom, now this is a teenager, he said, because I downloaded an app, and the app told me that if I continued at the rate of which I was consuming TikTok, I would have given up 17 years of my life. 17 years. At the end of his life, it would have been 17 years. And so then that got me a little frightened. Because I'm like, I'm a lot older than a teenager. Let me Google what the average length, or the average length for the average person would be. It's 5 years. And that's just social media. That doesn't even include the Bridgerton show. That is just social media. That's it. That's how much we are putting into our phones. And you guys, if us older folks have a problem with it, think about our kids. Think about the babies that are being brought up in this generation. So much of their time is being stripped from them, trying to stay relevant, trying to be in the know. So put your phone down. And I actually came up with this interesting idea that Greg doesn't even know about, but I'm saying it now so he will know. Is I have this idea of like a date night, and it doesn't have to be like your spouse. You can just get a girlfriend, a guy friend, and go on a date night. And you don't take your phones with you, and then you go to an irrelevant part of town, and you just find an irrelevant restaurant that you've never heard of, and you sit down, you don't Yelp it, and you do that. Is this not, I know, this is groundbreaking. I know for some of you, you're like, I do this every week. Well, for some of us who are attached to this, date, it needs to be like, where all the cool kids are going. But get off your phone.
Amen.
So now I want you to think about, and this is my action step to you. I don't want you just to hear that stuff and say, yeah, that sounds great, and now I'm about to leave and then go have lunch. I want you to actually write it down. If you don't have a pen and paper, then take out your phone, because I write notes on my phone, and write it down. What action am I going to take this week where I can sacrifice this relevance for relationship? Because relevance is fleeting, but meaningful relationships are enduring and will stand the test of time. And when you picture the end of your life, when you think about it, because at the beginning of the service, I said that the definition of success was the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. What purpose do you want to say you have accomplished by the end of your life? What do you want to say? Because I hope that so many of us want to be able to say that people felt loved when they were near me. That people felt seen when they were near us. That I opened up my home to love people. That I gave up my time to connect with people. These are the things that hopefully so many of us want to be able to say and have people say about us. It doesn't matter if they say, oh yeah, Gigi, she wore cool tights. I mean, they are kind of cool today. But what is that? How did that impact anybody? What really matters is how we make people feel. And ultimately, if you think about who we actually serve, Jesus, and if you think about his life and what he actually accomplished, he came as an irrelevant person. He hung out with irrelevant people. He was born in an irrelevant situation. And he did it. He sacrificed it to connect with us. There's something there. There's more power in relationships and connection than there is with just the pursuit of relevance.